Tell me a little bit about when you were chosen to be the chair. What did you think about the job? Was this something exciting to you, something you'd never thought about, or?
Well, let me start by when I was appointed as a commissioner. So
Okay.
back in 2018, very excited to be part of this effort. And obviously, we were formed by legislation to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So in 2022, I was asked to be chair of America250. So just for context, this is the 24-member commission, 16 private citizens, 8 standing members of Congress, 4 from the House, 4 from the Senate, bipartisan. And so to be chair of something as historic as this, it's an honor. It really is an honor.
And I think most of us have been thinking about it for only a few months. We're like, oh, okay, this is the big 250, but this is something you've been thinking about for a long time. Why is it so important to celebrate milestones like this?
Well, I remember the bicentennial like it was yesterday. So I was in 5th grade, and I remember clearly taking a field trip to go see the Freedom Train at our local train station. I remember seeing on our black and white TV the tall ships coming through the Boston and New York harbors. But more than anything, what I remember is July 4th, 1976. It was a cloudy night in Hayward, California, but those fireworks were never brighter. And you know, for me, it's not just a memory, it's a feeling. And I remember that night because of what I felt. And I was very grateful to my mom who came to this country in 1958 with my dad from Mexico, and who had the courage to stay and raise all 9 of us as a single parent because she wanted us to have a better life. And so we are the personification of the American dream.
That American dream will be celebrated in large fashion, it seems, in the months to come and next year. In large part, it seems like our country is very divided on a lot of things, but this is going to be a chance for everyone, no matter how you feel, believe, think about things, that it's one big celebration that we can all get behind.
Absolutely. So while we can't be all things to all Americans, we definitely have something for every American. So as we thought about as a commission how we wanted to plan this, we unanimously approved our playbook in March of 2024. And our playbook includes what I will call the movement and the moments. So the moments are definitely the pomp and circumstance, the fireworks, the concerts, everything that you can imagine, but much more than that. It's going to be amazing. The movement, we started the movement 3 years ago, and the movement is really our values-based programming that really speaks to the core of what we're trying to accomplish as a commission, which is to educate, engage, and unite. So that last word is so important, especially now. And we, we are a congressional commission, again, established by Congress. And so if you want to kind of think about us and how it's translating now into this bipartisan effort, and by law we have to be bipartisan, but what I also say is we are all partisan, nonpartisan. And one of the best examples of that is we actually formed a congressional caucus. And it was my goal when I became chair 3 years ago to become the largest bicameral, bipartisan congressional caucus on the Hill. Now, for anyone who knows how that works, it's very difficult, and many members don't join. And so, just to give you a sense of how it works, I mean, these are issue-specific subcommittees of Congress that are discretionary, and so we had to beat. And I said we're going to become the largest by the end of 2024. So we had to beat the Adoption Caucus, which had 145 members. We had to beat the Sportsman's Caucus, which had 238 members. We ended 2024 with 260 members. But here's the best part. So today we're at 335 members. We are now the largest in the history of our country. And we are 45% Democrat, 55% Republican. I would say that's pretty equal. And it's happening organically. So as we think about the support that we're receiving from Congress, which has been amazing, but more importantly, the support that we're receiving from the American public. So this values-based programming that I was alluding to in terms of the movement is so important, which is why we're here today in Salt Lake City. So just to give you an example of what type of programming we're looking at, if you take away anything from what you're going to hear today, it's these 3 words: 350 for 250. So no one else has ever made this grand proclamation of engaging 350 million Americans in anything. this is what we're doing. And it's through these types of initiatives like America Gives, which is what we are here for in Salt Lake City, which is our partnership, which includes our partnership with the church here in Salt Lake City. And America Gives is a volunteer service initiative that is literally the deliverable for this is we are making 2026 the largest year of volunteer hours ever aggregated by our country. It's never happened before. And so if you think about anyone who has had high school kids who had to do community service hours in order to graduate from high school, that number has never been recorded at the national level. So we're doing that. And if you think about organizations like the church, it's one of the largest volunteer organizations in the world. And so when you think about corporate America with their own volunteer programs, there are all these amazing organizations out there like Habitat for Humanity, Keep America Beautiful, United Way. We are aggregating all those volunteer hours together. So that's effective January 1, 2026. We're working throughout the year and using the 2 federally recognized days of service to remind people that this could be a year-round effort. So Martin Luther King Day in January. And then the 2nd federally recognized day of service. Anyone?
When do we do Sinclair Cares? What's that the day that we do it? Yes.
Most people wouldn't know that 9/11
is
the
Service Day, yes.
federally recognized day of service. So we are using those 2 days to remind folks this is a year-round effort, and then ending on December 31st, 2026, with whatever that magic number is. But this is a kind of a great way to kind of rise to the occasion, right? And so America Gives today was really personified in this partnership that we announced with the church. And what they're doing is today we saw the trucks hit the road. Yeah. These are 250 trucks that are delivering food to 250 food banks around the country. And they're starting today, and they're taking this all the way through 2026. So and in the process of this announcement today, we had a chance to meet with some of the volunteers with Just Serve. And these were high school kids who were coming together to help pack these meals, to help pack these boxes. And it really was a culmination, in my opinion, of all the work that we've been doing as a commission, seeing it to come to life in what we announced today, what we saw today, and most importantly, what I felt today, really makes it all worthwhile.
If people are seeing this happen and they want to be a part of it and they say, I want to do a service project and I want to make sure my hours are counted towards this, how do they make sure that happens?
Yes, so you go to our website, America250.org. And if you're an organization or even an individual, you can register onto our website. And then again, come January 1, we will aggregate those hours. You'll see the counter on our website. And this is just a great way, again, for everyone to find that common interest, that common value of service. I mean, our country was founded on service. And so to think about how we can give back, how we can inspire this next generation that we can learn from, right? This next generation has already been doing it, right? They've already been doing their community service hours in high school. So how can we keep that momentum going? How can we do it as a family? How can we showcase these great case studies of service around our country? And so, yes, go on our website, register, and get those hours counted.
Speaking of families, you mentioned being in 5th grade and remembering the celebrations. If people are wanting to get their kids excited about it, teach them a little history along the way, what can they be doing getting ready for the months ahead? Because the winter, you probably have some extra time leading up before we get to the summer.
Yes, well, there's so many great things for kids and families. I'll give you one of my other favorite programs called America's Field Trip. America's Field Trip was one of our first big pilot programs. It's a national student competition for grades 3 through 12. Let me start over. America's Field Trip is a national student competition for grades 3 through 12 who get to answer the question, what does America mean to you? And we're doing it with schools, we're doing it with faith-based communities, we're doing it with homeschooled kids, and it's a great way for kids to submit their essay, their poem, their piece of art. And those who are selected as award recipients get to choose from a series of backstage experiences, most of which are with our federal agencies, and most of which have never happened before. So we just announced our 3rd round for America's Field Trip. We've already done 2, which were fabulous. Just to give you an example of some of the field trips that we've done in the past. So I took the New York field trip. And this New York field trip wasn't just a tour of the Statue of Liberty. We took the private National Park Service boat from Manhattan Island to Liberty Island. We got up to the crown of the Statue of Liberty, which doesn't happen on the public tour. We walked the hallowed halls of Ellis Island when no one else was there. We were hosted for lunch by the CEO of BNY, Robin Vince. We got to see the markets room, the trading floor, the cybersecurity command center. We ended the day at the New York Federal Reserve getting an overview of monetary policy and then getting into the deep storage. So for many of these kids, first time on a plane, first time out of state, first time on a family vacation. And so, the fun part about meeting these kids is that they never thought they'd get picked. Like, what a great way to be honored and recognized. And then also, take these once in a lifetime experiences that'll never happen again. So, for example, this last round we had NASA, who provided a private tour of the Kennedy Space Center. Or
cool.
we had a sleepover, at the Smithsonian. We had kids who got to feed the animals at the Washington Zoo. And many, the National Park Service has been such an amazing partner. Many of our national parks have been included in all of this. I had a candlelight tour of Fort Point in San Francisco and then Angel Island. It was absolutely amazing. But the number one, of all these tours that these kids get to choose from, the number one tour that was selected by these kids 2 years in a row, Yellowstone. So what does that say? Like, these kids who get to choose these tours actually chose to connect with the outdoors, actually chose to connect with nature, chose to connect with each other, right? They don't want to be indoor cats.
Yeah.
They want to be outdoor cats. That says a lot about what we can offer as a country, what we can offer them, and how we think about what these kids really want to do. Maybe they don't want to be tied to their phones. Maybe they actually do want another experience that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So that's what we're trying to provide to them. And it's a great way to get these kids thinking about their civic responsibilities and think about what it means to be American. Here in Utah, we have the Mighty Five, lots of national parks people go to. Is there anything special happening at those parks as we head up to the anniversary? So, look, we have all 56 parts of our country completely engaged, and the Utah State Commission is absolutely one of the more passionate ones. And so I'm sure there's going to be, again, plenty of activities across the country. And in fact, we did create a master calendar and interactive map. So when we set out to really empower the states, and we intentionally set up an official America250 state commission in all 56 parts of our country. So the 50 states, DC, and the 5 territories, which, by the way, had to happen either by state legislation or executive order of the governor. Try doing that in one state. We did it in all 56. So we are empowering the states to make sure that they tell their story the way they want it to be told, that they can plan some of these activities the way they want it to be planned. And we launched this master calendar and interactive map, which each of the state and territory commissions can populate with us. So it's also their responsibility to make sure that everything gets kind of mapped out exactly the way they want it to happen. So we don't all have to plan a road trip to the 13 original colonies coming up. You can find things at home where you live to do. This is sea to shining sea. I say from Guam to Alaska, from Fairbanks to Philadelphia, and everything in between. The way I felt, right? I was in California, so I still felt like it was my commemoration and celebration, and that's what we want people to feel. I noticed that on a couple city council meetings here in Utah that this was listed on there as something they wanted to do. So are cities still getting involved in trying to figure out what their activities are? Yeah. U.S. Conference of Mayors is another big partner of ours, as is National League of Cities, as the National Governors Association. We want this to be as local as possible. And again, we are the federation. We are the one charged by Congress to represent all 3 branches of government. That includes the Supreme Court, that includes the executive branch, who've been amazing partners, and that includes all our stakeholders, but we want this to be truly a community activity across the board. You've worked in the federal government for a large part of your career, and so you've been a part of it and working in it, but people who maybe aren't as entrenched in it, what would you want them to know or think about or learn history-wise before we head up to Independence Day? I would say the biggest lesson learned for our country is that it's a journey. It is a journey. The American Revolution didn't end in 1776. It took 12 years even from the time of the Declaration of Independence to the ratification of the Constitution. Then we had the Bill of Rights, and even George Washington didn't become president until 1789. So that journey to become that more perfect union will always continue, as it should be. So our founding fathers, the fact that there were so many sacrifices that were made on our behalf to form the governance that we have today, is really why we are also focused on this next generation of leadership. It didn't happen overnight. Yeah. And so their participation and appreciation that they've been given this gift of pursuing their own American dream is really something very, very important. So to understand that history lesson of the sacrifices that were made for us to enjoy the freedoms and the liberties that we have today is so important, and to not take that for granted. Go and pursue that American dream as our founding fathers intended.
So we have to keep working to make it to the 500 year?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
250 years from now, absolutely. I think that journey will always continue to become that more perfect union.
And Rosie, the scope of the celebration, how do you keep it all straight? And do you wake up at night and just look at the ceiling and go, what are we forgetting, or what do we need
You're
to do?
assuming I sleep. I mean, this is what I do 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. And I tell my kids all the time, my God, someday I'm going to have to talk about something else. But not today. Today, this is all I want to talk about, because we have to get this right. And what I love about what we're doing and how this commission's just been so amazing is everything that we're proposing is unprecedented in scope and scale. Everything that we're doing has never been done before. And so it took us a while. Everything is tested and piloted and focus grouped, and more than anything, again, there's something for everyone. And taking out the politics is important here, because again, this is about our country. This is about the values in which our country was founded. This is about providing those platforms of unity that wouldn't exist otherwise. And look, the eyes of the world are going to be watching us, right? So we have our anniversary in 2026. We also have the Olympics in 2028. Of course, the World Cup is also in 2026. So we know that in a very short amount of time, billions of people are going to be watching what happens in this country. And so we're setting the tone. I keep saying we're setting the table here. We're setting the table and hoping that everyone comes to this celebration together.
Tonight they're celebrating a Liberty Village that's opening in southern Utah. Why do things like this matter here in Utah, to have this kind of history lesson?
Well, I love how Liberty Village is recreating kind of all these great historical places in our country and kind of one-stop shopping. I had a chance to visit the American Village in Alabama. It's just such a great model. And so to have the ability for these kids, again, I'm always thinking about these kids, to be able to take these experiences and understand our history in this kind of very focused way is so important. And so yes, when I received this invitation, how could I say no? I absolutely am here to support Liberty Village, and this is another great example of a way to inspire the next generation of leadership.
What can people do to dig in and figure out what they can do in their own communities before we let you go?
Gosh, go to our website, America250.org. You'll see our playbook on there. Again, something for everyone. Whether you want to wave your flag, if you want to know where my house is, it's the house with a flag in front. And so to show our patriotism and really, again, understand that you can still love your country and still want it to be more perfect. That is exactly what our founding fathers envisioned. And so whether it is something as simple as waving your flag, whether it is something as simple as celebrating America Gives as a family and giving back as a family, whether it is something as simple as having your child submit an essay or a piece of artwork for America's field trip, and of course America's Performance will be these series of broadcast specials. Let's not forget what's happening that 4th of July weekend. There will be something every day, starting in earnest that Thursday, that Friday, that Saturday, and even Sunday. We're looking at July 5th as a day of reflection. And why I love this concept of a day of reflection, we have this whole after the fireworks strategy, but a day of reflection is really our opportunity to really look back on what we just went through as a country with the Declaration of Independence, and then set the tone for the journey to the Constitution from there. And so whether you want to celebrate your day of reflection in prayer, in service, in just kind of pondering what this all means as a country, there's a lot more to come. It's not just the fireworks, but boy, will there be fireworks. But this is that journey that will continue. Let's not forget, in 2026 is the 25-year anniversary of 9/11. So we will not forget that either.
You mentioned many, many moments of people connecting, whether it was in Washington, city halls, students at Yellowstone, people volunteering. How does just that interaction, that human connection, what do you hope that does for our nation as a whole when this is all over?
I think we're still recovering from the pandemic. I think that will have consequences for a very, very long time. And I think people don't just want that connection, I think they need that connection. And so to find these opportunities that remind us that we are a village, that remind us that we, need to look out for each other, that remind us and recognize those who came before us, and hopefully inspire this next generation to not just visualize their future, but to feel their future. That is so important. I mean, look, young kids, millennials, post-millennials, that sense of purpose sometimes seems to be missing. And so if we are part of that narrative to provide a purpose, whether it is giving back, whether it is participating in any of our activities, I think that's the best we're gonna ask for. And what I saw today, what we witnessed today with the church, with these trucks that are gonna visit 250 trucks for 250 food banks, it really was a culmination of the movement and the moment.
We don't often sit with someone who's worked in the Treasury before, so now I have to switch real quick and ask you before we let you go. How do you feel about getting rid of the penny? It's gone, it's done.
Look, that's something that we worked on for a long time. There are billions of pennies out there that are waiting to be recirculated.
Yeah.
So look, I think it's a very efficient way of thinking about our taxpayer dollars.
Excellent. Anyone from the audience have a question before we let her go to other things? Yeah, you're like, no, she's done. Anything else you want people to know?
Oh, thank you. No, again, I think again the fact that Utah is very much engaged in this effort, the fact that we are here to celebrate Liberty Village, and the fact that we have a vision for our future. More than anything is I'm very grateful to Salt Lake City, very grateful to the state of Utah.